Do the minutes?
Yeah, okay, did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes from the March 24th or 21st meeting? If so, unless there's any changes,
I'll move we accept the meeting minutes as presented.
I have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, silence.
That was past meetings.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. We have got a couple of guests tonight. Tiffany. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi there.
We're gonna go ahead and start with Tiffany. She's
I
the,
think Monica.
Huh? was it so much for me to follow what Tom wrote for me? Okay. Maybe if I'd have been here on time, right? So we're gonna do Monica first? Okay. Monica is with the Economic Development Director for Delaware County. So Monica, if you don't mind, or would please, thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. One of my goals this year is to meet regularly with all the townships. So my first meeting with Harlem Township, and excited that we got this going. But at the special invitation of your strategic planning committee, which I think is fantastic. So real quick about me, I started here about 6 months ago. This is my 25th year of doing economic development. I've done it at the state, regional, local, and utility level. So I really enjoy being in the local level, and this opportunity was too good to pass up. So Delaware County, as you know, is one of the fastest growing counties in the country. It has been for over a decade, and it's a great place to be, right? You want a population that's thriving, that's growing. If you're not growing, you're going stagnant, and nobody wants that in their community. So one of the reasons why I'm here tonight. But enough about me. So let's talk a little bit about economic development. If you want to hit the next slide.
Yep.
The way I approach economic development and really industry wide, what we call the three-legged stool of economic development. It's about your existing business, taking care of what's in your backyard, right? It's about retaining those businesses so they don't leave for another municipality, another part of the region, or move out of the state. And it's also about attracting new business, because really your economy needs, in order for it to thrive, you also have to have new businesses come into your area to build that ecosystem. Your existing businesses, thank you. Okay. Your existing businesses actually do better when there's new businesses coming in, right? Just think about the dry cleaners or the gas station or the Walgreens, those folks need new customers to keep on pace. And so the three-legged stool of economic development has been part of the basic menu since the 90s. You can hit the next slide. The big new thing, and it's not really new now, but entrepreneurship has really become one of our staples. So we've moved from the three-legged stool to what I call the pub stool. And entrepreneurship, think about it, right? Google, Amazon, Microsoft, all those companies were started in someone's garage. They were started as a home-based business. It took innovation and technology to the next level, and now they're some of the biggest businesses in the world. I'm not trying to say that we need to do that here in Harlem Township, but what I'm saying is, some of you may be entrepreneurs, some of your residents may be entrepreneurs and have home-based businesses or have an idea, and how can we help your community be attractive to those, right? Because I really think you have something special in your center village. So I took a lot of time yesterday. This is a sidebar, but I made 2 trips to the township yesterday. I drove as much ground as I could cover, just about every segment of the township. There's a lot to see, but you have a great community here. It's just gorgeous. So I can see why you spent so much time on this plan. Next slide, please. So what are my goals for this year? Being new, right? We're kind of level setting. The position was vacant for a year, so we're starting from scratch. And so I like to put things in sports context. So for this particular exercise, we use football. We used to say at my old job, we're just trying to get to the red zone. The more times you can get to the red zone, you're going to score a touchdown eventually, right? So we're just trying to get to the red zone so that we can make something good happen. And so this year, the first thing that we're focused on is communication and collaboration. You can go to the next slide, please. And so, like I said, one of the goals this year is to really connect with the townships. 52% of the county's population lives in townships. We've got 18 townships. The bulk of our geography is in townships, right? So you guys are important stakeholders to the county, and it behooves us to really take the time to come out and meet with you and build that relationship. It's a two-way street. And so our goal is to meet with each township at least once per quarter. The next slide, please. With respect to that, it's about building trust, right? If we need to work on a project together, that shouldn't be the first time that I meet you all. That shouldn't be the first time I pick up the phone and call you. So I really appreciate being invited tonight to start to build these relationships. And Tyler Lane with our office is also here tonight. I think many of you know him already. We're working in tandem on this goal. Next slide. Okay, so number 2 is focus on the basics, what I call the blocking and tackling of economic development. And so there's several key components, but you can hit the next slide. The big 3 that we're working on right now is identifying sites. So you might have heard of the Berlin Business Park, right? That is our one development area right now that we have in the county. That's really all we have to offer. We have over 20 projects right now in the pipeline that just came in since the start of the year. And many of these projects, I took a look today, most of them, a third of them are maybe in the 50 to 200, 300 acre category. Many of them want more acreage. But 50 acres isn't really hard to find, right? Once you get up to 300, that takes more time. But, we need more sites that are available to land business, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is diversify the economy of the county so that everyone's taxes are a little bit more palatable, right? We have to diversify the tax base if we're going to keep taxes low for our residents. If we can't bring in business, the residents are going to pay more of a percentage of the taxes, and you're going to see this. The school district's taxes are going to keep going up, and you as residents are going to see that bill going up. And so that's one of the reasons why economic development is so important to everybody. Another focus we have is on existing businesses. So if you do have any small businesses here in the township that you'd like us to connect with, I've handed out my card to some of you. I'm happy to hand them out to the rest of you folks, but give us a call. We're happy to set up a meeting. We've got a goal of 70 meetings this year. It's one of the core components of economic development is to understand your existing business. You can't attract new business unless you know how your existing business is doing. When we bring in these new opportunities, they interview existing businesses. If those existing businesses have negative things to say, it reflects badly on the community, and they're not going to necessarily want to come here. So it's really important to make sure that your existing businesses are happy. And that kind of leads me to the third piece of this, which is attracting new business, right? I've already talked about diversifying the tax base. As you know, people come and go, businesses come and go, the economy changes, and we just have to think ahead, right? And there's new businesses coming online all the time now. So we want to make sure that we're attracting what we call innovation businesses and businesses of the future. That's what kids in grade school are learning right now, right? The internet wasn't even around when I was, I hate to say this, but like a young mom. I mean, that's how things have changed so quickly, right? And so if we can't be prepared for the change ahead, it's going to affect our ability to thrive. Next one, please. Last one is strategic plan. You probably have heard that the county's embarking on a new strategic plan. Nothing new. We've had plans in the past. Every 5 years, it's time to redo that. I think what's new and exciting this time is we're post-pandemic. The world has changed. The economy in the county is quite diverse, right? We have parts of Westerville that have major Fortune 1000 headquarters. We have industrial clients, we have small businesses. And so the plan, post Intel, we're really going to be able to look at this and say, how do people live and work and get to work, and where do they work, and what type of industries do we want to attract to be set up for success in the future? So the strategic plan is going to help us do that. You can hit the next one. So the main things, and Tiffany was on my steering committee, so thank you. We want to identify our target industries. I've already hit that. we really want to understand workforce development and talent. And I think this is really important for you all, right? Young people are the future. Young people are the people that are going to come in and buy your home when you're ready to retire and move to Florida or whatever it is you want to do, right? It's the younger generation that needs to be prepared to have the resources to come in and buy a home. And so it's really important for us to understand that talent pipeline. What do those, and we know Intel's right in your backyard, right? And they say they're going to hire thousands of people. So what do those types of people, what type of skills do they need? What type of education do they need? What type of things do we need to be doing to promote in the community to help advance not only Intel, but all the suppliers, all the different jobs that are out there today that didn't exist a decade ago or 15 years ago. So that's a big part of our plan. And then again, I said the real estate strategy, right? If you don't have a site, you can't land a business. It's super critical to what we do. So those are kind of the high level issues that we're going to tackle amongst them. You know, we're going to look at incentives. We're going to look at, obviously we're going to do a lot of stakeholder interviews. So don't be surprised if our team that we select reaches out to a few of you to be part of that stakeholder engagement. And if you're interested in volunteering in that, please let me know. So I think those are the big things on strategic plan. Yeah, so I think the last slide is just together we win. I wanted to reinforce the fact that economic development is a team sport. There's no I in team. We're doing this together in partnership with you all. What do you want to see? How do you envision your community changing over time? And how can we help plug in there? And so again, we're happy to be a part of it. Called out a few things that from the materials that were sent, right? So just, I have read the strategy guide. So, you know, we understand that you're looking at development areas there to the south end of the township. When I did my driving tour, I did notice some opportunities maybe on the eastern edge border. Certainly seemed to be a lot of vacant land there. I think the point I want to make here is it takes two to make a real estate transaction, right? You have to have somebody that wants to sell their land, and you have to have somebody that wants to buy their land. So just because there's vacant land doesn't mean that there's going to be a project, right? It really takes that partnership. And so, you know, you've adopted your plan, which is great. I just kind of wanted to give you my perspective being new, and after driving around, it did seem like there's potential development areas on that end of the township as well. But I think you're solidly positioned. I mean, the center and the eastern part, I don't envision any big changes. I think that we can really help add to what's here. I really think that Center Village is an area of opportunity. I really believe in organic growth. And so, you know, if you decide that you want to layer in some incentives for that area, I think that, you know, we could really help support that entrepreneurship or small business efforts there. Because I think you may become a tourist place for folks, right? Those horse farms are gorgeous. It's a gorgeous drive through the center of the township. So, I mean, who's to say with all the activity coming in from Intel that you can't support some type of restaurant or shops in your center village? So that was kind of my 2 cents just driving around yesterday. Also, the engineering office, I'm not here to speak on behalf of the engineers, but they did provide me with just an update of what their plans are for road improvements. And so they do have several things slated for Harlem Township. And it came to mind yesterday when I was driving around, right? So I was happy to see some of these improvements. I think it's going to help from a safety perspective. So they're contemplating some roundabouts at Harlem Road and Fancher, single lane roundabout at County Line and Center Village, some safety upgrades in Center Village, as well as some safety upgrades on Fancher, and then a single lane roundabout at County Line and Fancher. So most of these are scheduled for either 24 to 26 or some as late as that's for planning, and then construction 26 to 27. So I think that's important for you all to understand the timeline, right? Not going to happen tomorrow, going to happen in 4 to 5 years. So with that concludes, oh, one more. that, I just wanted to tell you what, and you're gonna hear from Jobs Ohio soon. This is the pipeline that One Columbus is working with right now. So when I say that we need sites, they've got 121 active opportunities right now. If we don't have the real estate, we can't try to land those jobs. We can't try to improve the economy of Delaware County. And so, that's why it's so important to understand what the real estate framework looks like. 14% of the opportunities actually are office, which I think is a great opportunity for Delaware County. We know we rank high in financial services, technology, and computer science. So there is a market for office, and it's a nice product type. It's usually a higher end building, brings a lot of tax value to the community. 57% it looks like are manufacturing. I don't know why their numbers don't add up. That's like 200%, but I'm gonna ask about that.
It's overlapping. International manufacturing.
Right. Yeah, thank you. 26% are semiconductor. And like you said, that 40% international, we're seeing a ton of international companies right now. That's really a result of the pandemic and supply chain issues and companies realizing that they need to bring business back to the United States. There's efforts to help just build back the industry that we lost about 20 years ago, right?
What
So-
would be an example of that?
Well, there's a company that's having a grand opening in a couple weeks called Weika Technologies. They're a German automotive company. They did their search about 18 months, 24 months ago. So I think that would be an example. We have a company in Westerville. I can't name the name, but they're seeing an increase in activity because of all the foreign companies coming back here. Their business is growing. And that's kind of back to my point where new business helps existing business, right? So our existing businesses are succeeding if they have new customers coming into the market. And then really maybe just a final comment about incentives. No more slides, but I know you all are looking at a JED, which I think is great. If you looked at that One Columbus slide, let's just take one of those manufacturing opportunities. There was one that was farming manufacturing. They needed about 100 acres. Their payroll was going to be over $38 million a year. That would result in about a $380,000 value to a community's JED annually. So just to put it in perspective, why manufacturing can really help a township versus retail jobs, which are low wages and just don't bring as much value. So with that, I'm happy to take questions, or we can wait till the end.
Something small on those roundabouts. Did you mention Fancher and 605 Brownford and Albany Road?
Fancher,
I know it's slated, but I think
That's not on right now. The county does not have that.
Really?
They don't. I just got a list of all the road things that are supposed to take place in Delaware County, and what as of now, that's not on that list.
But I live right there, 1,000.
They just came in.
1,000 feet from there, and they're doing. They're doing work already.
I know. That was my question.
Okay.
Why did we changed the infrastructure, but it's not on their docket.
But she mentioned one on Fancher and
605 and Fancher is number 4. That's project number 4.
Oh, it is?
Delaware County's got the wires.
Well, this isn't, I mean, these are future. These aren't like slated for next
Okay, so they're
year.
not on the, okay.
No, these are, like I said, 4 to 5 years from now. So
Okay.
you
planning,
mentioned 3 or 4 roundabouts just off on Fancher.
I believe there's one being contemplated at County Line in Fancher on the east end, and then one at Harlem Road in Fancher.
605. Oh, 3.
It's 3.
And then one at County Line and Center Village. Okay. So 2 on the east side and 2 in the center. And again, I mean, you can go back to that slide, but I can hold the picture up.
So
I mean, the goal is, so I think I've been here 6 months, but one thing I remember, a lot of the transportation efforts have been north-south in the past. And now with Intel, we really need to build out the east-west connections for safety reasons, to move people around so we don't get, traffic jams, right? I was on County Line yesterday at 5 o'clock. People drive fast on that road. It was kind of unnerving, but so again, that's a north-south, right? So we just need to keep building out the east-west to kind of balance it out. But
When you're talking about economic development and bringing businesses in, having looked at Harlem Township and our first, commercial areas. What kind of businesses do you think you could help us with? I mean, we're not having 100-acre tracts or 200-acre tracts. So what kind of economic development do you think you could help us with? On big and smaller scale, because we're not gonna have these huge industrial parks.
right. So we don't focus too much on small retail, but I can tell you when you're dealing with a development-oriented project, the developers usually are the ones that are recruiting the retail to be the anchor tenants
Well, I
of their
understand that.
property.
It's office buildings or, small, I don't want to say home manufacturing, but on a smaller scale.
Sure.
So you don't do any of that.
Well, I'm not saying we don't do it. I'm just saying it's like a small retail. We may go to International Council of Shopping Centers once a year and talk to a variety of retailers that might be in our future. And that would be a way to bring,
Retail, what I'm saying is.
well, no, but it could just be a restaurant that's gonna, Chick-fil-A or
So
something.
our parcels are designated, for the developers to be a minimum of 25 acres. Okay. So again, the question is, where do you see Delaware County being able to help us? With the, attracting, somebody to take these 25-acre plots that are zoned commercial, light industrial, whatever,
Okay.
and, what are you gonna do to help?
Well, I think we have to understand the size of the parcel. And if it's zone light, this is the first I'm hearing about light industrial, that's a totally different conversation. I thought it was,
Well, it's there, when I say light, you gotta realize, we're talking Harlem Township.
right,
When it's light, we're talking almost garage style, just maybe a hair more than that.
okay,
But, and there's a lot of different things that fall into industrial, it doesn't mean a sheet machine shop.
okay.
But there again, we're at the, 25-acre.
That's a nice size. And so again, it's really developer driven. We will work with developers. I constantly am meeting with developers.
Is there any incentive for them to come to Harlem Township, to the county?
Well, that would be through we could partner on a CRA or some type of incentive.
And what is the CRA?
That is a community reinvestment area and it provides tax abatement for a company coming in. So the real estate owner would receive, let's just say 50% tax abatement. You work with the school district. So the school district, the glass is half full, right? If the glass is empty, everybody gets zero.
Mhm.
If the glass is half full, everybody's getting something. And so we work with the school districts to develop that type of incentive, which helps abate their real estate taxes, usually for 10, 15 years. And that really helps kind of get their business started up, get their feet on the ground.
How do you offer that?
We have the ability to do it through the county. So we would,
So if we got a developer that, has a plan and
Mhm.
wants to take that 25 to 30 acres,
right,
we can put you in touch with him.
absolutely, absolutely,
That's
yes.
what I'm trying, that's what
Okay.
I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Where we can go, with you offering the help, we need to know what kind of help.
yeah, sure. No, I wasn't sure you all were interested in that, so that's great,
Well, we gotta figure out what to do,
sure.
and all options are on the table for the president.
Okay, well, I can tell you that, a lot of businesses are ready to grow into like a 50,000 square foot building. There's not really a lot of them, right? You've got the big boxes, the 1,000,000 square feet at Rickenbacker. We're not talking about that. Some businesses just want 18 to 25 to 50,000 square feet.
But
And-
is that a warehouse?
Well, I would call it flex space. I wouldn't call it a warehouse. It might be an engineering company. It
Oh,
might
okay.
be, it might be a company that needs some warehouse, but also some ability to make their product or
Yeah, I
kit their
think we'd like,
product.
if we can find that, we'd like a company doing value add on a product, not just, warehousing it.
Sure,
So some component of higher quality jobs rather than not that warehouse jobs are low quality, but, you know, higher content of value engineering going into something.
Right. So Creekside is a really good example of that type of development in Orange Township. I don't know if any of you have driven through there. Maybe we could do a little tour for you, just so you could see the types of businesses that are there. We could maybe set up a tour of a certain type of business. Just met with a Swedish business actually, and they do have a warehouse, but they ship art to people. So apparently you order art on the internet, it's a big thing now. Nobody really wants to go to the art gallery and spend hundreds of dollars. They just order it online, and these folks, they have 10 people that work there, and it's very low, you know, doesn't emit, you know, bad air or anything.
So do you help promote us?
I would help promote you, absolutely, yes.
So when our zoning gets in place and utilities are coming, then what do we do? Sit down and show you what we have available? And
Well, I think what we need to, yeah, I think it's all about, back to my comment about sites, understanding the real estate piece of it.
Okay.
And so we would help you either secure a developer for a certain area, that's one strategy. Or if we have a site that is controlled by one listing broker, for example, we can promote that. I feel like there's a number of different ways to help you. It's just, we really need to understand how the property is set up to move forward. Because a developer driven deal is completely different from a land deal. And both are needed. So, but the developer usually has more control in the process. But no, that was kind of my point earlier. Like, we need more sites, we need more property to promote, we need more. I'm thrilled to be here because we just need more opportunities to promote. Yes.
This is Holly. Can I say something really quickly?
Yeah.
Thanks. Just wanted to chime in to let the Strategic Planning Committee know that in the mixed use district, where we have the series of images for the types of architectural styles that you're looking for, one of those images is actually a flex office warehouse type use. It does not look like it from the street view. But when you actually go into the website where we have, referenced in that district, the backside of it actually has that warehousing capability to it. So I think that there are ways to tweak your mixed use district to accomplish what Monica is talking about here.
And we are going out, I mean, part of being a good economic developer is going to conferences where site selectors go and have projects, and you have to have something to sell. So, I just need more of these, once you guys are ready, don't worry, we're gonna be promoting it. So, yes,
There's location Green Meadows,
yes,
and they have a lot of small, medium, they have a robotics company, they have manufacturers equipment, but they're not huge.
right,
You've got health care facilities, you've got insurance, small insurance company in Westerville, you have the insurance company that's in the middle of nowhere.
right.
How will water impact? Because we don't have significant
Right.
on.
So, I mean, I know that meet with Delco pretty much weekly. So I did not have anything prepared for tonight, but I mean, I've talked to them enough to know that Harlem Township is on their radar. They definitely have plans to, increase capacity on this part of the county. So they've got the ability, they actually already have some excess capacity north of here in the Mount Vernon area. So, obviously and Tiffany's going to talk about this. It all comes down to how you're going to pay for it. right? And so that's why I'm thrilled to hear that you're interested in sort of a balanced approach, because we need industry to come here to help offset the cost, right? So if they know, okay, we got one user that's going to use so many gallons of water, they can justify that expansion. So, but they're definitely planning for it.
Couple of quick questions. One with Intel. They'll need a raft of suppliers. There's their own supply base. From what you've heard, are those all locating within the industrial park that New Albany has already created? Or are they going to spread out further?
So there is a group of suppliers that will locate, are required to locate within 5 to 10 minutes of Intel. They're already identified, they will be using New Albany for that, you know, whatever service they provide. There's a group that will want to be 20 minutes away. There's a group that doesn't want to be close to the site, that they don't want to compete for the workforce base that the other suppliers are going to be. So they're going to be looking at an hour radius or maybe further. Then we have the other dynamic with the other semiconductor projects that have announced. So Micron in upstate New York, they announced a $100 billion project. So now we have some suppliers that said, wait a minute, I was going to be in Ohio, but now I have to be in upstate New York. And I'm serving both of them. Maybe I should be in Pennsylvania. So there's going to be some folks whose decision gets skewed, or maybe they already have a presence in Cleveland or Philadelphia or, you know, Pittsburgh, and they don't necessarily have to locate here. They're close enough that they can get here in a day's drive.
But when you say within a 10-minute drive time, it's kind of the plum. Half the township is within 10-minute.
Yeah, but you guys don't, again, think about what I said with the scale of development, right? It's not going to be 25 acres. It's not going to be 50 acres. They're going to need, I mean, potentially we might be able to recruit one of them if it's a good fit for one of your 25 acres. But timing's everything, right? We know that the plant's going to be up in 2025. The suppliers are all kind of circling the wagons right now. I don't even know if they've actually announced who their suppliers are going to be. It's very competitive, whether you're trying to fight for big three automotive or semiconductor. I mean, they have to go through the paces on their pricing to make sure that they win the business. So they're still figuring that out. I think once they're locked and loaded on who the suppliers are going to be, then they can start making their real estate decisions. Some of them need rail, some of them don't. Some of them need, you know, access to a highway. So, I mean, those sites that are closer to 71 would be more attractive potentially. So, and that's another great point, that it all comes down to, it's an individual company need. Typically, we don't know until we see the requirement. They might need a lot of water. They might not. And so every company's different. We certainly have seen a few of the smaller ones, but I think the ones that are coming out early are the larger ones that either need to be close or going to have some sort of significant, more advanced manufacturing type process.
The other question has to do with one of the focuses of the comprehensive plan was farmland preservation. Has anyone come to you as a value adding to farm supplies? So we grow corn, we grow beans. Has anybody come to you? I want to build a plant that'll make soybean curd or ethanol or something.
We had a request this week that wants to be close to a dairy farm. So the Farm Bureau is working to find out where the dairy farms are in Ohio. And again, keep in mind, these are national projects. And so, you know, they're going to look at Wisconsin. They're going to look, I don't know where else dairy farms are, but you know, they're gonna shortlist several states, and you know, maybe Ohio will be one of them. I have experience with indoor ag, so I mean that's definitely something that could potentially be a fit, but you know, there are a lot of lights in that type of facility, so it might not be attractive for your community, but certainly it's an interesting aspect of farming because it's a steady workforce, 365 days a year. But we'll work with you. I think, so once we get our strategic plan finished, we'll be coming back out to meet with you to talk about where the targeted industries are and where we think the best fit is for the township.
What's your-
Yes.
Is it a given that, these projects you're talking about require sewer?
Great segue to Tiffany. Yes, I would say all the projects that we talk about, once in a while, we'll have somebody say, sewer is not important, but that doesn't mean they don't need sewer. I've never had an industrial project, not want sewer. So, yeah.
What is your timeline on your strategic plan work plan?
Yes, we should be announcing the firm hopefully in the next week or two. So we're working on
But the deliverable.
the deliverable will be in the fall. Yeah, we're gonna kick it off here in April and it'll take a few, we're gonna take a little bit of time to make sure that we get the stakeholder engagement. That's really important.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, and we're definitely gonna make sure that the ag community is represented in that. So
Good.
Tom, did you have anything else?
I think, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
You're welcome.
Can I go to Tiffany now? Okay, next we'll have Tiffany. You would please.
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Tiffany Mag. I'm the director of the Regional Sewer District of Delaware County. A little bit of background on me. I've been at the county for 7 years now. Previously was in consulting. I see Joe in the back there, as he walk in. I did that for about 10 years. And before coming to the county, I wanted to just do something different. And I've loved it ever since I've been here. So I hope to stay at the sewer district for a long time, but we'll go ahead and kick it off if you want to head to the next slide. I want to just give a little bit of background about what we do at the sewer district. We actually have 9 treatment plants right now. We're getting ready to construct our 10th plant. We're in the planning phase. It'll actually be up just north of Alum Creek. We're calling it the Central Alum Creek Treatment Plant. And it will be expandable to a 4.5 million gallon per day facility. But what we currently have is the Alum Creek plant, which is in Lewis Center. It's in that Walkerwood neighborhood. It's a 10 MGD facility. This is the one that does service the Polaris area. So it is our largest plant. Also OECC, which is the Olentangy Environmental Control Center. It's the plant that's located on 315. I don't know if you've seen it before. It's like a lot of really nice looking brown buildings. It almost looks like a ski resort or something back there with a fountain out front. That's a 6 MGD facility, services all the Powell area, kind of up to the north there. And then Lower Scioto is a 1.4 million gallon per day facility that's out in Concord Township off of Moore Road. And this is a plant that recently went online, I think about 5 or 6 years ago. We also have 32 pump stations, almost 550 miles of sewer, and 40,000 users, which equates to about 115,000 residents that we serve. The pictures that I have on here are 4 new pump stations that we just built over the past 5 years. So you can kind of see that, we really try to go high end with our facilities so that they match, the surrounding area. The top on the right is on Heights Road off of US 23. That was I guess basically the architecture and everything was selected by the developer because they wanted to look like the house that they were going to build behind it, because they donated us the land. So I think it'll be a really cool facility and really match, what the end use is for that whole area. Also, the other ones on the bottom, the one in the middle is in Alum Creek on the Army Corps property. So we wanted it to kind of match that kind of campground feel they have out there. And then on the right is in Evans Farm. So the Evans Farm developer donated that land and selected how they wanted that pump station to look. And then on the left, that's a very large station. It's actually our largest station in the county. It is just off of Bale Canyon Road. You can head to the next slide. So this is just some kind of highlights of what we've been seeing recently with the growth. No surprise, right? Is things have really been trending upward over the past couple of years. We saw actually in 2022 the most new tap connections, which basically is the most new units connected to the system since 2005. So it was almost a 26% increase from 2020 to 2021 during the pandemic, and then things didn't slow down. We saw another almost 5.5% increase last year. This year, we did see a bit of a lull in the beginning of the year. I think we're down maybe 10 or so percent, but man, March March just ramped up. I went to commissioner session the other day and discussed, I think it was 15 new projects that we had just come in the month of March, which is, it's unusual. So things seem to really be trending back in that direction. You can go to the next slide. So this is just to kind of get a visual of what we actually serve in the county. It's mostly the southwest portion of the county. All the different colors are the different tributary areas for those plants. So the Alum Creek tributary area is shown in yellow. Like I mentioned, that's a 10 MGD facility. We currently operate it at about 6 million gallons per day. So you can kind of get a feel for the scale of the size of what we could serve with the tunnel that's coming to Harlem Township. OECC is a 6 MGD plant. That's the pink shading. We currently operate that plant at 4 million gallons per day. So that would be kind of similar to what we'd be looking at the township here with capacity. Then we also have a handful of other plants throughout the county, as well as, you could flip to the next slide. This shows, this is not easy to see, but we have all of our pump stations are shown in yellow. The red are the force mains, and then the green are kind of that sewer network, shown in different thicknesses based on the size of the sewer. If you had a chance to open on your computer, you could kind of see what that layout looks like. Yep, go ahead. So I guess, what we're here to talk about today is that it's called the Lower Big Walnut Tunnel, is the city of Columbus's extension that's going to be coming up to the intersection of Harlem and Smothers Road. So you can see the green, which once again, if you open it on your own computer, you can kind of get a better feel for where it's coming to. And what the city did was they laid out they did a planning document to determine how much flow could be sent to that tunnel. And with that planning document, they gave a density of 4 people per acre for a certain service area to determine how much flow they could send to the tunnel that basically was reserved for the county. Came out to 3.9 million gallons per day. So a couple questions before the meeting started was, okay, is that line set in stone, or can that line move further north, or can it move further south? The answer is yes. So as long as we don't send more than the maximum allowed capacity to that tunnel, that tributary boundary can look like whatever you all want it to look like. So, we would have intentions as being a county sewer district to service the entire county. So you can see there's even like a little piece in the far right-hand corner that's clipped off. I think that was because of topography, but we would intend to serve that site because it is in the county. So this is what was laid out in the count, or in the city county sewer agreement, that the city would bring this tunnel in exchange for us serving that Polaris area. So you can go to the next slide there. So they intend to finish this tunnel by early 2026. They've just completed bidding recently, and I believe that they were in the process of getting that tunnel boring machine ordered, shipped, whatever they do with those machines. We don't use those in the county, so I'm not all that familiar with that process. But they would be breaking ground, I think, in the near future. And like I mentioned, the tunnel shaft, which is where we would connect and run that sewer north, is located at Harlem and Smothers Road. There's actually a 48, I believe it's a 48-inch connector that's about 35-ish feet deep. That's where we would connect into that shaft and take that sewer north. Development and zoning will dictate where, when, how sewers are extended, right? So it's really going to be a matter of what developers are looking, what businesses are coming into the township, where do the sewers need to go in order for us to figure out what is that sewer network going to look like and where is it going to go. So if you could flip up to the previous slide, we can talk a little bit more about and it kind of where I know you all have your planning document. So we've been kind of trying to think about, what makes the most sense from a sewer perspective, how to get sewers to the different areas of the township. There are some larger swaths of land, I think just north of where you have the higher zoning, that would likely make some sense to bring the sewers through, from a development perspective, but really it's ultimately going to be who buys the land, where are they looking to bring sewers to? So yeah, go ahead. I'll start taking questions.
Yeah, while we're on that subject, so if first off, a couple things. At one point, when I was talking to your office, not you at that time, Emily, does that sound right? No, Tiffany?
There was a previous Tiffany, yeah.
Huh?
There was a previous Tiffany,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Anyway, they said that some of this, project might be taxpayer driven. Taxpayer funds instead of, developer driven.
No, we typically don't install sewers with taxpayer funds. We are completely funded by sewer fees, so tap fees and user fees. We are not at all funded through tax fees at all. I mean, unless if there was a TIF placed on an area.
I was told that the first section of this would be, funded by the county. Sorry, I don't
So,
know. That's-
so are you're saying by the sewer district then, not the taxpayers?
Well,
right.
the sewer district, however, it was non-developed. It was non-developed.
Because the county, we do not pay for sewer
Right.
at all.
Right,
Only the people that are using the sewer pay.
Well, okay, maybe
Correct.
misconception, misunderstanding. So the development of the first, let's say, shaft
Mhm.
through, doesn't have to be, I was told it doesn't have to be developer driven.
so we haven't had those discussions yet. That's a commissioner's level decision. If they decided that they wanted to spend capital funds out of our sewer revenue. They would have the ability to do that, you know, similar to what they did in the Berlin Business Park. We spent a little over $6 million bringing a pump station to get that business park up and running. So the commissioners typically, and I'm kind of speaking for them a little bit, they typically would choose to do that if the zoning was in place, that it would provide a positive return on their investment,
Right.
right? So that's kind of what we did in the Berlin Business Park.
Yeah, I'll have to get that name, I'm sorry, I didn't bring it with me. That's not what we were told.
Okay.
So, you know, it is what it is, you know, you're telling me something different. So,
I mean, there's certainly a potential that will happen. It's,
well, this was almost like they wanted to bring it so far to make sure they got to a certain point.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that point was, for instance, we have a trailer park that's in dire need of sewer. I don't know what the driving force of that was,
Mhm.
but we were told that that would be funded by the sewer district or
Okay.
whatever, and not developer driven. Then from there, it would be developer driven.
Sure.
And then also there were going to be some incentives to the developers, possibly incentives to the developers, and tap fee credits and that type of thing. But then they plan to get someplace else. There again, I'm just going by what I was told.
So with that, the sewer coming out of the shaft will be large, right?
Right.
It'll be 48 inch, probably a minimum 36, probably 48. So if a developer is bringing that size of sewer north or whatever direction, they would get paid oversizing tap credits because they probably only need an 8 or a 12-inch sewer for their site.
Right.
So if the cost of getting the sewer from A to B is, let's say, $5 million, but they only need to really spend 1 million for their piece, we would reimburse them with $4 million of tap credits. And that's an astronomical number. That's not
Oh,
typical,
that's fine.
but so yes, we do give tap credits. That's a standard policy that we have throughout the county. Anything over, I believe it's a 12-inch, that you don't need for your site, but we need for the county, for the regional area would be subject to tap credits. That's correct. And as far as your other question about us extending sewer north, I mean, honestly, we haven't had that discussion yet with the commissioners, but it is very possible because of what the cost is going to be to get to that shaft, that the commissioners would not put that on a developer. And furthermore, the size of the sewer is going to be large. So there's going to be a lot of tap credits involved if the developer were to do it. So there's a good chance that we will take it to some point north.
So let me follow up again. Like I said, this is completely different than what we were told. That's not sure. Well, I'll get into my notes and we can talk later.
Sure.
So, but as a committee, we were looking at Delaware County starting the sewer, taking it to point A or whatever. And then we were going to meet with you, your department, and show where the most density was planned to start with. And then, of course, you would meet with the developers and go forward.
Yeah.
So as a committee, if it's all going to be developer driven, starting where it intersects into the county, then as a committee, what say do we have?
It would be in the zoning. I would think that it
We
would
have,
be,
we've already laid the zoning out. So it's just, you know, if the developer over here or over here, we haven't, we have no say in which direction it's going to go, other than who gets to you first and who's paying, or.
that's typically the way that it works, yes. And when in our office is, you know, developers are gonna like typically choose land closest to the available sewer and start bringing it from that point forward. We do our own internal studies to figure out what the size needs to be and what that network generally needs to look like. How it gets from point A to point B to point Z, all the way, you know, the furthest northeast point that you guys are gonna be able to serve. So we have that layout. We have a hydraulic model that we run to make sure that these sewers are going to be able to service the entire area that we have for the tributary. But yeah, I mean, typically it is the developers that, you know, come in first, closest to the sewer. They start extending it from there, according to how we expect them to do it with the sizing. So we would lay out, now that we're seeing your zoning, I think you are a little closer to having that finalized. We would start to lay out what that sewer network is eventually going to look like to service the tributary area. And that's something that we would, you know, have you all involved.
With developers, landowners, that type of thing, so we have an idea of where the highest density is going to start at and go.
Okay.
There again, in presenting that, when we thought there was gonna be some kind of tax, you know, Delaware County money. That sort of changes the perspectives, because it really doesn't matter what we're planning. It depends on what the builders have, what developers have purchased, and what their plans are. See what I'm saying? So if we wanted, if we saw a concentration area and you guys were gonna run something, we would say, well, maybe you could run into that concentration.
Mhm.
And, but since Delaware County's not paying for it, we can't say it needs to run, you know, for them to pick up, for the developers to pick up coming out of that concentration area, because you haven't paid the pipe.
Well, I think that's still up for discussion. You know, I'm not here to say we're not spending any money in this area. But I think that's kind of, I think, the point of this meeting today is to start that dialogue. You know, what is your concentration area? Where do you need sewer to get to? Is if it makes sense for us to spend the money to bring the sewer to your highest density because we'll be repaid through tap credits, that's something we would consider, certainly.
And I
Yeah,
think
it
that's,
seems like it's a little- hold on, is that Holly?
yeah,
Hold on, this is Steve, hold on a minute. So,
Okay.
I mean, it feels a little preliminary to be having the conversation. You know, hopefully 4 months or so from now, we get the overlays in place and ready to roll. At that point, we're gonna collectively have a better feel for, almost give you a heat map of where we think by a timeline, you know, where some of this stuff might go first.
Yeah,
And then we can sit down with you and then we can think through then, how do we start
yeah.
crisscrossing or, you know, tree
Yep.
trunking or whatever.
yeah, and
Down the territory.
that's how this will go. I mean, we're,
So-
you know, 3 years out from us being able to make a connection to bring anything.
Yeah, we're not on the clock today.
Right,
So,
so,
but we're pedaling down that path.
Well, we're still planning.
Right.
I mean, we're
Yeah.
not stopping, it's just different than what we were told.
Right. Holly, go ahead.
yeah, all I was gonna say is that through the zoning, and you guys have all kind of touched on this, but through the zoning, you're almost incentivizing where that sewer goes, right? If you have a higher density area that's closer to where the sewer is going, and you can partner with the developer, with the county, the developers are gonna prefer that, right? Because it's closer, it's cheaper, and that's where, you know, there's potentially you're incentivizing it through that zoning, and then you're not gonna pick your highest density the furthest away to take the sewer to, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
yeah, yep, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. go ahead.
Why is it 150% cost to township residents?
What's that?
The agreement with the city of Columbus states that Delaware County sewer will be under 50%. of what the city of Columbus?
That's because of our Polaris agreement. We get the same in exchange over there. So we get 150% of their flow at our user rates. So it's the same in return on this side.
It's the user rates though, or?
But likely, there's a potential, yes. Once again, we haven't, this is so preliminary, we haven't had these discussions down to this level of detail yet.
So two questions, and excuse my ignorance, okay, as just a resident. If you're bringing sewer from point A to point B, and that's a higher density area, are you bringing sewer up the road and then over? Or are you going right through the back of people's property with sewer?
Well, so typically that's developer driven as well. At the county, we typically don't build sewers, right? We build treatment plants, pump stations, developers take it from there, from point A to point B. So typically what we see is this developer here brings it through their property, then this developer here brings it through their property. We require them to bring it to whatever point on their property would allow the next person to grab it and take it. With the easements in place so that person doesn't have to mess with this property owner, they're ready to roll. Like they could pick up the sewer and go. That's the way that we typically see development happen. We really don't put it along roads very often because it's very expensive. The type of backfill that you have to place along the side of the road it's like a granular, like a rock material all the way up to the top of the trench, which is expensive. When you're in an open farm field, you put 1 foot of that on top of the sewer, the rest is just soil backfill. So it's cheap because you're just backfilling with the soil you've already dug up. So it's quite a bit cheaper to not be near a road.
If you have a resident, not a developer, okay, and the developer needs to get sewer from this side to this side, and what's in between is a resident,
Mhm.
then how do they make a decision on getting sewer from this side to this side?
It's up to the developer to purchase that easement through that piece. Or to try to go in the right of way if they need to for that section that they can't get an easement if that's the case. So we see developers negotiate those on their own terms.
Second question is, you talked about the hookup on Harlem there and Smothers.
Mhm.
Any other hookups in the other parts of the township?
That's the only one that's coming for Delaware County's use. I did hear that Columbus is also extending a tunnel to the east. But I believe to service a portion of Licking County and maybe some of the subsidiary Intel area.
But that's not Delaware County.
No, it's not. The tunnel is actually probably like a couple miles south of where my map cuts off and it'll run to the east towards Licking County.
Thank you.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
This may be a question that nobody really cares about, but as long as you, what do you do about the field town that you're cutting? When you're getting your sewer through?
We require the developers to have in their plans that they replace that, anything that they cut through.
So how do we make sure that happens?
We have an inspector on site that watches all of the work that they do. So if they cut through anything, right, they cut through, you name it, all kinds of utilities. They'll stand there and watch them replace it. So that's my staff.
But how do you know where they cut, if they cut, when they cut?
Well, because they're standing there watching them dig every day. They can see, whatever they cut through. They're able to, I mean, they do deal with it on a daily basis. So it's, it's something that they know what to look for and how to make sure it's repaired.
Have a hard time.
Sounds like you won't be selling any easements, so you should be safe. Then you're safe. Yeah, good.
If the sewer is planned to come from Harlem and Smothers north,
Mhm.
and high density population is projected for that immediate area, is it gonna all get used up before it goes further north?
No, I mean, 3.9 million gallons per day is pretty,
Okay.
yeah, it's a lot of flow. Like I said, on the one tributary area for our OECC plant, which is, it's on 315, but it services all of Powell, quite a ways north. That's 4 MGD. So what really, realistically, we could probably service the majority of
My
the township.
question was really alluding to, have you cut off the opportunity for some sort of non-residential development by using up all of the capacity.
No, I would say you guys, your zoning is.
Handle all of Harlem Township?
There's a potential, it just depends on the zoning. I think that I saw the 1 to 3 units per acre is pretty low density compared to what we see. So you're likely gonna be able to service further north with a density like that. If you did a 3 or 4 units per acre, then it's gonna shrink that down a little bit. So.
We get a lot of questions in the community about when sewer gets here, will I have to tap in and how are those decisions made? Is there any forcing that to happen? Do you have any comment on?
Sure, yeah, so that's a health district, that's kind of in their court. But as far as I know, as I've been at the county for 7 years, I don't believe they've ever forced anyone to connect since I've been here. I don't think that's really something that they have as their mission. They're more wanting to help the residents and try to figure out ways to, if they don't want to tie in, but they have a failing system, work with them on how to get that back into compliance, is what I've seen. So I would say likely no, but also I did mention to Bob earlier, we do offer a 50% reduced rate tap fee for anyone that does have a septic tank that wants to connect in. So instead of the $8,100, they would pay $4,050 to connect in. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Ready, see, we're at next, Tyler.
Well, I think Tyler and Monica kind of.
This together, Tyler, you don't want to say anything?
I can say hello again. It's nice. For those of you who do not know me, I was Harlem Township's legal counsel to the prosecutor's office for about 1.5 years, 2 years. Stopped as I transitioned into economic development, obviously stopped being this specific attorney, and I'm just happy to be back here, see the growth continue that I saw 2 years ago, and happy to answer any questions for you. Obviously, work with Monica. I do a lot of the site selection things from Columbus. So as your guys' zoning comes up, you start getting tracts of land, you're looking for certain types of businesses. I'll be working hand in hand with trying to match the perfect business to your location.
Can I make a comment on that too? I mean, we'd be happy to have another conversation with you about zoning. I think we've learned some things from Harlem Township just with respect to, they got very specific with the types of companies that they wanted in their cloud zoning. And so just, you know, we can work with Holly and give her some perspective of like the pipeline. And I know you've got Jobs Ohio coming, but we actually have data that we've collected so that you can understand, you know, there's just different ways to do it. You could just say all of manufacturing, you could say you only want to make shoes or belts, right? Like you can get that specific. So it just gets to Tyler's point, like if it's too specific, then he might not be able to submit the property because they may be making, I don't know, gumballs.
Yeah, I want to chime in here too, because this came up when we were talking as we started to develop the zoning. Someone suggested using the codes, and I said, no, I do not want to use those. I want to list uses because they're broader, it gives more flexibility. Because I know Berlin Township did use those, and it did back them into a corner. And it was, you know, a resident driven reason why they chose to go that direction. But as a planner and as someone that's trying to be the crossroads between that planning and economic development, the way that we have the uses written in Harlem Township will be better to facilitate different types of uses as you go forward.
Thank you. Tyler, thanks you.
And
Yes.
to a point earlier, there's been a lot of advanced manufacturing as part of it, which spans tremendously what they are creating, which really gets into the high skilled manufacturing value add pieces that you guys mentioned earlier. I mean, there is a plethora of them coming out right now, and they're going to continue with Intel and the other announcements. So if that's something you guys are looking toward, there will be plenty of options going that route.
And Tyler, I might get with you because I typically have a broad definition of advanced manufacturing, but maybe I'll get with you and see if that definition kind of meets your needs. So going forward, we know what we're dealing with, for anywhere that I'm working for, that in connection with you.
Anytime.
Anybody else? Well, I guess we're gonna move.
Carl, hold on one second. A little administrative activity here. So, George, can you tell me what your last name is, please? Hello, George.
Yes, yes. My last name is Ulloa, Ulloa.
Ulloa.
OA.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks, George. And Keith, I think I know who that is, but would you identify yourself? It's gotta be.
Wake up, Keith.
You gotta find the button.
Yeah.
Keith Campbell.
Keith Campbell.
I think it is too. And then the last one, we have a Mike's iPhone. Mike, what's your last name?
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, just spell that for me, please.
COUTINHO.
Okay, very good. Thanks. Mike.
Also, for the first speaker, she was asking for volunteers to help out. I wouldn't mind submitting my information if she could reach out to me.
Okay,
George, in the chat section, why don't you send me your mobile phone and email address? And while we're moving along here, I'll give that to them.
Who are you? Sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm Steve Eisenbrown. So yeah, so send it to Steve.
Got it. I just don't know
Good
who's who in the chat.
All right. Back to Carl.
Okay. Well, Holly and Molly, the stage is yours.
I'm gonna let Molly take the stage, since she's there in person, and then I can chime in where need be.
Okay. I'll share my table with you. Don't pound on this table because it bothers them.
Be nice to her.
You need to be admitted.
No, Holly, do you want to share your screen maybe with the document? Or I could log on if that's easier. Holly, can you hear me?
That mic on?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was muted. I'd answered. I'm on my phone, so I cannot share my document.
Okay, I can join really quickly and share my screen.
Monica, Tiffany, do you want to sit through this or?
we can scoot. You'll get the contact info to us.
He's getting it right now, actually.
Thank you.
Where is the Zoom link located? Do you know? Where the Zoom link is?
Molly, go to the calendar at the bottom of the homepage. It's right there.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. This is the red line document from last time. Okay. So, let's see, maybe I can make this a little bigger. Yeah. Okay, so just to start, document wide, the numbering has been updated to reflect an actual article section. So this is Article 33. And then it is referenced throughout, and then you'll notice, let me just find one example for you. So around here, I've changed all these and updated them to be the accurate article reference. So that is the major changes for these first two sections here. And this one as well. So for the permitted uses from our conversation a couple weeks ago, we added limited agriculture may be approved as part of the open space and the final development plan. Just some formatting updates here in section 33.05.
Can I ask you a question? What do you call limited?
I think that will be up to the discretion of the developer and of those approving it. So nothing that would be, I guess, causing, impacts to the surrounding areas, something that could be done like small scale gardening, maybe beekeeping. I'm not sure, Tom, this was kind of what were you kind of envisioning when you were talking about limited agriculture?
Part of it might be the model, an agrurban model, where you've got residences integrated into a farm landscape.
Mhm.
You might
Yeah,
have.
we have specific approval criteria that have to be met. So it would be defined by meeting that criteria. And as Molly said, would be approved as part of that development plan. So as long as it's meeting that criteria, then the trustees would be allowed to approve it.
That is within the developed area, but agricultural land is still separate from all this, right?
Correct.
Agricultural land is always exempt from zoning. This is just saying where how it could be integrated into the open space. But in a township, agricultural zoning is exempt, or agricultural uses are exempt.
Okay, so then moving down here, again, just formatting changes mostly. We also did add, you'll notice we've got tract highlighted here, lot and lots. So those have also been added to the definitions. And then we've also added a definition for hipped roof as well, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So this is all the same. So here, it originally said 85% or more of the total number of homes should have a direct view of the common open space. We heard some feedback that might not be a feasible thing. And so we changed that to saying all lots must be within 3/4 of a mile of the open space or walking paths that are in the development. For the sub areas, we've changed that from 3 to 2 sub areas, and then the densities are also just updated here. So sub area A is a maximum of 2 dwelling units per net developable acre, and then sub area B is 3. Minor formatting here, just making stormwater one word instead of 2.
Yeah, and Molly, on G on the stormwater, I thought when we talked last meeting, I was looking to get some additional language that talks about preventing any downstream impacts and kind of the language that's in some other places. No stormwater shall be allowed to be released above and beyond what was released pre-development. Some of that kind of language.
Yeah,
So, I was on Zoom, so.
I thought I added that, but it's not here, so I'll make sure to add that.
I think it got added to the mixed use district that got forwarded onto the zoning commission and didn't get added here.
I'll make sure to make that align with what it says in there. All the same here. So then for building height, we've clarified that the highest point of the roof will be measured from the established building pad grade as shown on the approved grading plan for the.
That may have been what we agreed to, but that's not the definition that's in the current zoning resolution. We take a point, I think 15 feet from the outside.
So would you prefer to say that?
Any,
I prefer that we use the engineering plan and use the elevations that are on the grading plan that's approved. I think it's easier on the zoning inspector. I'd like Mike Cannon's opinion on that from administrative viewpoint.
Well, as long as they have it listed there and yeah, we can go with the engineers. I agree that he shows on the plans.
the problem I see with that is that you bring in 60 or 70 truckloads of dirt, raise the building side by 5 feet and build up on top of that. And so if you're using the existing grade, which you would measure off the actual building pad, it prevents that.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're thinking of it from somebody coming in and building a house on an individual lot versus a subdivision. This is a subdivision where they're going to come in and they're going to grade the subdivision to meet all the subdivision requirements and drainage requirements. And then every lot is going to have a specific elevation for the first floor building pad based upon that grading plan. So I think we're comparing apples to oranges here, and we kind of need to go with this language based on this being a subdivision.
I understand.
Yes,
Okay.
you were trying to go 15 feet away from the house that said now, you don't know what you're running to.
Yeah.
So our next change, we have upped the living area here. So it was 1,000 square feet. Now it's 1,500 for a single story, and then for a 2-story home, instead of 1,125, it is at 2,000 now. The garage size has also been increased from 240 to 580 square feet.
80 or 40.
580 is what it says now.
580 is a 2-car garage, 240 is 1-car garage.
So then in this building design section here, letter O, we've changed it from being a rural design theme that is unique to Harlem Township to having it be more representative traditional rural architecture. And this kind of opens the floor for the developer to look at those books, Tom, that you had found, and use some of those styles to fit into here. So for the street lighting, from last time, we had some comments from residents about adding just a couple of things. So we've added that all lighting shall be directed toward the ground and the interior of the parcel, and all lighting shall also be full cutoff lighting. Uplighting is prohibited, and then light fixtures shall not be higher than 12 feet. Things looking the same here.
Does that light, because I know we discussed it, does that light fixture of 12 feet also have anything to include the base?
So
Because the pad or the pole base that pole is set on top of, that's a game I've seen played too many times. Is there any way to say like maximum height of the pole can be 12 feet instead of the pole? I mean, that.
Well, this says the light fixture itself
Okay.
can't be higher than 12 feet. It doesn't care how it gets there. Whether it's a pole and a standard or just a pole, right? I mean, if it's maxed out at 12 feet, it's 12 feet to the fixture. What doesn't.
We
matter.
actually, yeah, well, we actually need to say that it's measured from the
Yes. The ground.
It
the-
does.
from the ground to the highest point of the light fixture, because they will try to measure from different areas too. So it needs to say the highest point.
Okay. that's a good-
Yeah, and then I actually have an exhibit that we can add in here to show how to measure it.
Yeah.
And I think that'll help clarify it.
But the way they have it spelled out takes the discussion of a standard and then a pull out of play.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Oh, right.
And then as I mentioned before, just above this, to just go back a little bit, this is where we've added hip roofs to the permitted roofs. So we've changed this parking space requirement. It originally said outdoor recreational facilities. We've changed that to be a little more specific for things like sports facilities, so baseball diamonds, tennis courts, things like that. And then have added an additional parking space requirement for less intensive, more passive uses. So walking paths and neighborhood parks, that requirement will be 20 minimum spaces instead of being included in here where it was 50. This is all the same from the last meeting, just minor formatting here with the numbering. And that's what we got.
Good.
Simple.
Question, yes.
We speaking from developer builder side, is it still maximum of 3 family in this district?
It is. Go back to that. So. Matt's not
And-
sufficiently.
Just commercially in developments, 4 families or twins or more typical. I've never seen too many 3 families built. I was informed it was maybe because people think of 4 families as multi-family.
I think that is where the multifamily definition starts is. Once you get past 3, it becomes multifamily and people.
And what I'm picturing, most buildings that have, I wouldn't say it was typically a ranch, sometimes they're 2-story, story and a half. And then when you start attaching more than that, you're getting more into townhomes that are 2-story. But not, and they're individual units, there aren't units on top of each other. And so townhomes, you know, whether you call them 3-family attached or 4-family attached, I think townhomes should be permitted. You look at, and I don't always like to use New Orleans as an example, but you look at their market square, that all those nice brick buildings that they want to build, there's multifamily on the corner of Market Street that goes up 2 or 4 stories. But the for sale product is all what I would call townhomes. They're big townhomes. They're attached. And I drove by tonight, there's 8 or 10 of them attached on Market Street to get a certain look, a certain feel. And so I don't know what the intent or why it is, because then we're getting into multifamily. But yes, they are multifamily by definition, more than 2 or 3 attached, but they're townhomes.
Also apartment free.
Pardon?
They're also apartment free. What do we look at?
The townhomes on Market Street in New Albany are apartment grade?
Well, what you're talking about.
I'm sorry, that is what we're talking about, is quality town.
Well, the zoning doesn't say quality townhome, quality 3-family or quality twin single. Joe, it says what it is. So you may be the only, or one of the few builders that want to put something quality in, but with this being a blanket cloud, how do we?
Here's another example. You go up to Evans Farms. They have townhomes there.
Yes.
They're fronting the park and then doing some things like that. You
haven't said anything about quality of homes.
No, but what they're worried about is that some of these four families may not be quality. The other thing that drove this was that 20% of the property could be put into a multi-family at the time. And so the larger parcels, you could end up with 80 or 90 apartments on that parcel because of 20% of the density. And I'm not against per se equality. What I'm trying to figure out is, you know, what do we do to make sure it's quality without discriminating to the other developers?
I'd also like to point out here too that it's not precluding those types of uses from ever being approved in the township. Anyone can come in and request a rezoning to a planned unit development, specifically addressing that type of use, a townhome. It takes going through the rezoning process, but it's still a process that can happen and be approved if it's the right product in the right place. What they think the township's trying to do here is create an expedited process for products that make sense to give that incentive for an expedited process. But when there's something that needs a little more control and a little more detail in what it looks like, and making sure that it's meeting everything to a T, then let's push it through that normal rezoning process.
And I hear you. I think I believe in this section, you have quality standards. Are you permitting vinyl siding on homes? Then you wouldn't, are you permitting vinyl siding on multifamily? No, so you wouldn't be permitting vinyl siding on townhomes. I don't see where that distinction. I'm not saying go 6 family or unlimited. I'm saying 3 family is kind of impractical. People just really don't build them. Limit it to 4 on the expedited process. If it's 10 in a row or something that makes sense, like Market Street. It's a common building type, and it can be just as attractive as the houses are going to be built. And everything else, so.
We don't want a solid wall building.
Is there a difference between 3 units attached and 4 when it's an additional 24 to 40 feet? That's all we're talking here. The units, townhomes range from 18 to maybe 30, 40 feet. That's the addition I'm asking for. It's just people typically. And if this is to be a guiding code and you want to allow for some attached product, it's just the developer's perspective and builders that have done everything we have done is quality. And this won't be the first time we don't do that. And I believe and overall, Harlem Township has the opportunity to have one of the greatest master plan communities because it's starting from basically not having sewer like the west side of Hoover all the way to the zoo. And just, what's that?
How did we come up with that? I'm curious.
I think because like there was a multifamily and after 3 and we just mixed the multifamily.
It wasn't originally, we had,
Ohio Revised Code lists 4 units and up as multifamily.
Originally, there was 50% allowed in there, and that was based off of the PRCD that's existing in the township right now. And then it was asked to be removed, so we did remove it. So I think if we're going to add it back in, that conversation just has to happen, and the strategic planning committee needs to give us direction on that.
I don't think the developer ought to be telling us what we have to do.
I have a question though.
Oh, we want their input. They have a right to give us.
Developers come and go.
Mike, I might disagree with you completely too. I like New Albany developed. I'm sure I want it on Harlem Road, but in the right spot, that could be a high quality looking place, so. It could. We won't let the developers tell us what to do, but we're gonna take their input.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, but the problem that I see is we're talking about 3,000 acres. We're not talking about a simple, 75 acre parcel. And that's the problem when we've been doing this whole thing.
Right.
Is we're doing it over the whole southern part of the township. And some of the other people here made the comment that, and also Holly, that you can come in and get it rezoned. We still have zoning standards, not just the overlays is a piece of it. But, if you guys want to entertain that, that's up to you. But the problem is we're doing thousands of acres, not just one project.
Well, I think the issue though is that you've had all kinds of meetings and people have talked about the density that they don't want to go beyond.
Right.
And I think that free limit was kind of a compromise in what people wanted.
Now we're trying to change.
So I do have a question though, because 3, I think just from like a building standpoint does seem a little bit odd, and I understand if we got there by wanting to make it not be multifamily, but does by making it a 4 unit, which seems a little bit more just in building that you see, by making that technically under the definition of multifamily, does that open you up to other issues, or was it just not wanting to touch multifamily? Because it doesn't seem like we're stuck on the 3, it was not wanting to go multifamily, but if 4 is a more practical building sense, it maybe more attracts a nicer kind of development and higher quality.
Well, four family is multifamily. And we're not specifying if that's a rental or a for sale product. And then also, it's like Joni said, we compromised based on the feedback from the community.
Right.
And the community doesn't want multifamily and on a large spectrum.
And I hear that, I guess just by making it 4, even though technically under the definition, if that's multifamily, does that open you up to other?
Can I chime in for a second?
I'm not saying
Is it
the 4 was just by the definition.
Yeah.
If we're just trying to get quality where it's not some big thing, is that?
so we could add in a definition for townhome at
Hang on,
4.
Holly, just a second.
Okay,
Stop
sorry.
the cross-
I
We need to
couldn't hear.
stop the crosstalk, please.
Sorry.
Holly, go ahead.
Okay, so we can add in a definition for townhome that is separate from multifamily, and then limit it to 4 units per building. That's not an issue. I've done that in other townships. So if that's something that's desired by the township, I'm happy to build that in.
I just wanted to make one other, because that is exactly a great idea. It does not change the density.
Right.
If
No, it
you're in an
doesn't.
area, no, I was just answering Mr. Pierce's comment that because you're going from 3 units attached to 4, that doesn't change the density at all as
Are we allowed to-
talked about in the meetings.
Are we allowed to designate?
Then why are we having meetings if you're gonna change it?
I didn't change it.
Well, you're creating us.
It's a discussion point
Holly,
for property owner.
Holly, this is Jim. So.
Did somebody,
Hang on, Holly. Jim's got a question for you.
So on the 4 families, so I understand what Joe's saying, that it's a for sale product. But you could also have a 4 family that's a rental product. Are we allowed to, in the code, actually make a difference between the 2?
no, you can only regulate density. You cannot regulate the type of ownership or rental, only density.
One family unit is a rental. I mean, that's.
Well, no, what I'm saying in the code, so what Joe's point is that it's going to be a nice, saleable product, condo product. But we still have the possibility of people building those and renting them out.
Yeah, I mean, somebody could rent a house out too. I mean, we
Right.
can't, right,
That's what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
Joe wants to build them and sell them. But we don't have a way of making that mandatory.
no,
Okay,
The
that's
thing
what
is-
I'm asking.
Joe might build them and sell them, and the person he sells it to might rent it.
correct.
Exactly.
I mean,
And
to say the rental thing, I think that's kind of to me, a mute point, because you could rent a single family house.
I was asking.
You could rent a trailer, you know?
I'm not saying I want that. I'm saying I was asking if there's a way to,
Well, I think you'd have to stop any rental
well,
or leasing or.
well, I know there's certain projects that the government regulates, but, this is not one of those, so.
I did want to point out just the ones in Evans Farms are rented. The ones in New Albany are not, but they're both very attractive. I mean, not to say that I believe your fears, the architectural standards you're putting in. If I just go back to the no vinyl, there might be landscape requirements. I saw, I'd like to get a copy of the text. All those things are going to control quality. And the desirability of what Harlem Township's overall is going to, I believe, increase the quality.
Well, I think it's worth hearing that. If we could have a township segment. To me, the difference between 3 or 4 is mute, and if the input we're getting is you get theoretically a better looking, better designed, more economically built product. I don't see the big deal with that. It doesn't change the density. It's not 12 units down the street. So to me, going from 3 to 4, given some valid input, I'd be good with that.
Well, if we keep our controls.
Yes.
So we can add, in the permitted uses, we can add, townhome, and then we'll add in the definitions for townhome.
Yeah, I wouldn't, we can say townhome, we can say quad units. There are different ways that we can say it. I have different definitions for those. So if the committee would be willing to let us kind of play around with that, and bring it back to them to the next meeting, I think that would be helpful
I
rather
think
than
that would
trying
be a
to
good thing,
hash that.
Holly. I
Yeah.
think that would be a good thing. Bring it. Let's, I mean,
Can somebody explain to me why 4 units over 3 units is not a change in density?
You're allowed so many per acre.
If you had 1 acre,
it's units per acre. So now you're putting 4 in this spot instead of.
But I do want to warn you, I'm just throwing this out, that if they are rental units in a 4-family, that's not the same as a rental unit legally, 1, 2, or 3 family. The government has different regulations for landlords with 4 units or more in a building. So when you open up that can of worms, I'm just telling you. And I can't publicly tell you what all that's gonna entail. But having been there, I know from which I speak. Just letting you know.
excuse me, may I say something? As a resident whose property abuts the multi-use corridor is going to be affected by 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units. And I think I can speak for some of the other people in my area. We would obviously prefer to see single family homes over anything, right? The second thing that we would prefer to see or not to see is some warehouse masked light industrial that's not desirable. And if we could look anything like Market Street in New Albany with the homes that you're talking about, Joe, and with all respect to your farm, I have 42 acres and I farm it too. I don't personally, but I want it to stay that way because I believe that's why I came here, was to get land and stay here. Okay, but to make it look like Market Street, and we had those townhomes that sold for recently, they went off at $880,000. Okay? That's what we want in this community. We don't want to see quad, 3, 3, 3, and a bunch of rentals there as residents abutting this area. I don't know the answer. I think Holly, your comments about rezoning, I don't know, maybe Joe could say, or you could comment, Holly, on how difficult it is to get something rezoned, but if someone like Joe who builds a quality product and goes to the zoning commission and basically says, this is what I want to do, how difficult, how much more would it cost, Joe? How feasible is that, or is that not?
I can't speak to the cost. I can let Joe speak more to that. Timing wise, we're looking at only requiring a final development plan for this overlay zoning. So you're looking at, like a 45-day period to get something approved with no referendum on it. On a rezoning, you're going to have more of a 90-day minimum process to get through the entire ORC requirements. And that's with no one asking for it to be tabled through the entire process. And then it's also subject to a referendum once it gets approved. So I can see from a developer standpoint how that could be a deterrent, but I also see from the community standpoint that if they want certain uses in certain ways, they'll incentivize it with the overlay district. And that's really a choice of the township of where they want to provide those incentives with the overlays. So that's my spiel.
I'll answer Joe too, that Holly just spelled out the difference. And I first want to again compliment this committee of how far and what they've accomplished in a year. But if it says 3 family and the committee spent all these hours and all this time, there will be a person in the audience that said, why didn't you show up when all this was being discussed? We just went through this year process. It was huge for the township, and you, the developer, are trying to change it. So that's one reason, why we're here. And Mr. Pierce, I would like to give you the answer on the question on the density. If you have 2, or if you have 3 acres and you're allowed 4 units an acre there, that's 12 units. That's all you'll get. So you could build 3, 4 families and you're finished. You'll have more open space. Or you could build 4 3 families, but nobody builds 3 families. It's the density is what you're allowed to build, which has been discussed. We've opined some, but that is what's been the big public discussion was density.
Yeah, I thought it was 3 per acre in this.
Yeah.
particular area.
Well, the question is, do you want that as a blanket? You guys want that as a blanket zoning over a couple thousand acres? So that anybody can build 4 families in this thousands of acres.
We've got people can't hear with all the talking. If we're gonna have cross, people are gonna have to go outside to do that.
Anyway, back to the committee. The question is, and you have to realize, Joe and everybody else, that we did this representing the southern half of Harlem Township. And we were trying to come up with something that represents what the public wanted on a large scale, knowing that there'll be individual developments and stuff. It's not all going to be one large development. So if you change it to 4 families, you're changing it for everybody in those thousands of acres. Every developer. And so you're taking a chance, and like I said, there are some legal ramifications when you hit 4 family rentals. And so if the township wants to do that, I'm just advising you on the record that this is what you're doing.
I have some potential ideas of how to address both sides of this to come to a common ground. But again, I'd like to think about it and come up with an idea and proposal and not hash it out right now, because I think it would be better if I could provide a more comprehensive approach to it.
Mr. Chairman, I move we table this discussion until we get to the next meeting.
Motion, have a second?
Second.
Motion
All in
second.
favor?
Aye.
On top of which, I think the zoning commission has got its hands full right now with the 2 articles. 4 articles that 5 articles that we've already, no, 2 articles that we've already sent them, so. It's not gonna slow.
We only sent them 2, I thought.
What?
We've only sent them 2.
Yeah, okay. All of
I
them.
didn't
We
think
sent
I
them
missed
2 when
them.
they're, they gotta get through those 2 first.
Yeah,
then.
we can resolve this in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Holly, I think coming to us with a couple ideas.
Yeah,
And
that'd be
let us think about it. And maybe we can get some input from the community, maybe some folks that are, I'm sure there's gonna be discussions going on from this meeting.
Sure.
Okay.
Do we want to continue? So should we move on to if there's anything from any other committees? I mean, we are at, we're 8:17. We got 13 minutes if we go to our 2 hours, or we could actually pull the plug, and is there any,
Real quick,
I was gonna say, is there any committee, the committee?
Developers Committee.
Okay.
Real quick, the next, overlay will be Center Village. Already started, pounding that out, which reminds me, I gotta talk to you after the meeting. It's going to be a long, drawn out process. We're going to have to do a lot more in-depth planning. We're gonna have to rely on Holly to bring us, sketch out ideas, rework the sketches. So anyway, that's going to be a long drawn out process in case people were thinking we're just going to jump in and knock it out. We're not going to do that. For many, many reasons. The other thing that we had discussed in the past was coming up with a second mixed use overlay over on the east side along East County Line Road. Working from our current overlay up north somewhere into the Center Village, north of Center Village area, where there's large tracks. I think our development person even said, "Oh, you got some nice land up there." So I think that will probably move a little faster while we're working on the Center Village deal. Center Village is going to be a little slower. I think the second mixed use, and we have some ideas on maybe some changes in that to accommodate that area. So what do you think about that, Holly? Did I lose Holly?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I think that sounds good. I think you explained what we talked about at the trustees meeting the other night and concisely. And I don't have any other comments. I think you did well.
Okay, fine. So that's, we're gonna start looking at that and then start getting feedback and comments on that new mixed use area. And we're also working on the Center Village, which is very complicated. So that's all I had.
Can I have a comment? Sure. The development, Monica, your name, person, I do have a problem with somebody who calls farmland vacant land.
Yes, I did too.
Sometimes it's just as well to not engage.
What
As that is for me.
It bothered me.
One thing I noticed from the presenters we had tonight, and I saw this earlier today, and Holly, I'm sure you noticed this. But from the sewer district, this service area is going to Needles. I'm sorry, I'm pounding on the table. I've been hollered up for that. This service area is going to Needles. This is taking in a lot farther north than I think any of us were anticipating.
I mean, I think even that what she showed was not set in stone.
And that's not, well, then she made a comment in her presentation. We could service the entire township.
Right. I did catch that. On the densities, like if we didn't allow as much density as.
I understand that, but that's something we need to keep in mind.
As we think about the area north.
We're not doing anything north of Center
West,
Village.
yeah, Center Village.
Well, that was for later
Right.
on.
Yeah.
We were going to go ahead and start moving.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm just bringing up a point
Yeah. you're
that
right.
this sewer, that the map that we got from her today, or whenever that came, is currently going farther north than we planned.
Right.
And then the comment was made, we can service the whole township, and I know that has not really been discussed in this group.
Yes. Right.
The other thing, just a comment is, you know, and they have their job to do. But I would not say that Monica's view is congruent with what we're trying to get done in Harlem Town.
No,
And I didn't want to pick, you know, kind of get into that. And that's why we're doing the designated styles of architecture for some of these areas. Because again, the message is rural looking development.
yes.
And that's not, I don't think that would be number 10 on her list at this point, so. Yeah.
That being said, it would probably behoove to have the Economic Development Office read through those zoning overlay
Mhm.
rules, and then they can give you a good idea of like, here's the kind of businesses that would be attracted to this,
Mhm.
or, hey, you guys are limiting yourself to like 3 businesses in the nation. So, you know what I mean? So like,
Which might be a
maybe
good
just have
thing.
I'm not saying change the rules, but it would be a good idea to see what kind of business they want to come there. On that list.
Okay, anything else?
From the communications subcommittee, if anyone has not checked out the strategic planning committee website on the township or webpage on the township website, it was recently updated with a lot more information, some, you know, relevant links to the different presentations that we've had, most of the meeting minutes to date. So I've tried to do a good job of kind of getting that page to be a good place for residents to go to check, like, you know, latest and greatest up-to-date information. So Kendra from the township helped get me set up with access to update that page, so it doesn't have to go through Kendra all the time. It can be more directly updated from someone on the strategic planning committee. So I just wanted to make sure that people, you know, residents, there's a few residents out today, so, you know, if anyone, you know, wants to share that there's information, better information out there, that'd be great.
That was good.
Thank you. And then, we have had, the subcommittee has had a couple of sessions where we talked about potential questions for an upcoming kind of follow-up survey to send out to the community. So we'll work on kind of finalizing what that looks like. The theme of it is generally going to be to try to gauge how well we are educating and reaching the community in terms of like, you know, have we been able to kind of shift opinions or, you know, stop some of the misinformation out there? Or is there still a lot of, you know, misconception and, you know, false kind of opinions and thoughts? So I think a lot of the questions are going to be geared towards trying to really pull out, you know, how much, you know, how well are we doing on educating the community, and you know, kind of how much more we still need to do to make sure we don't, you know, hinder ourselves with referendums and things of that sort.
Molly, I made a comment to trustees the other night, that, and I think we ought to think of it as kind of a continuing process. And I think I think a survey is a good thing to do, but also thinking about the timing of moving this thing, this overall approval, the overall approval through the trustees to keep it moving on the rails. You know, it could theoretically hit the trustees in May if zoning does what they are trying to get done, right? So, you know, survey almost with the immediate thought of we better be prepared to host another, I don't know if Holly's up for another 10 meetings.
Maybe
But
some.
on the flip side, it might be 5 or 6 to continue the education process when we get the results of the survey. So again, we can dive into that and provide community members yet another
contact point with us.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I missed last week's, or last, meeting because I was out of the country. But yeah, timing wise, we need to definitely get on that and make sure that we are staying ahead of the timeline of when the trustees would be adopting anything that's like real.
Yeah, okay.
Holly? Holly? You're muted again.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
I just want to make sure you hear what I'm about to say.
Okay,
Don't plan anything for the next couple of years.
you have my attention. So I'm sitting here listening, thinking the same
You're
thing.
not
So
going anywhere, just is what I'm saying. So,
yep,
if anybody
I-
else has nothing?
Yeah, just two quick
Oh,
things
sorry.
on the watershed and drainage. We've obtained kind of existing field tiles for the REI project that's moving forward. So our intent is to continue to be engaged with them closely to understand what plans they're working on with Delaware County so we can handle water. On the transportation side, I've been surprised now from last night's, or maybe it was last night's meeting and then tonight's meeting with some transportation things that Holly, I know, met with the Delaware County Transportation Group within the last month, and there's a bunch of things now that we're finding out about that they did not share at that time. So, you know, I'm going to be working offline with that work group to say, okay, who is it we need to be engaged with? Because they don't appear to be communicating as we thought they might.
I think there's a problem in the fact that there's because the information I got was what's happening this year. And then, but there was nothing written in stone. There's projected, there's thought of over the next 5 to 10.
But what I obviously want to do
Yeah.
for our committee
Yeah.
is to be able to capture all of those that, you know, on near-term horizon, medium and long-term, so we can understand, because, you know, we heard some things that maybe even as the SREI project was working with Delaware County, they were talking about some additional roads that we had. So anyway, I've got some work to do there.
Anything else? Entertain a motion?
Make a motion, adjourn.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Good.
Thanks, everybody.
good night. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks, Zoomers. Did you? Yes.
Yeah.